So far, most of the people that have said they think we're going to need it are from the companies that are making the vaccine. Dr. Fauci, former CDC Director Tom Frieden, others have said there's growing evidence that there's may very well be enduring protection with the vaccine we have. Now, I've been a big supporter of the warp speed effort to invest early in vaccines that weren't approved yet, which I think made a big difference in availability. I do question the BARDA decision to purchase 400 million doses of Moderna and Pfizer as a booster dose. Were you asked about whether that was the right decision to make or not? And if you weren't, should CDC be involved in a $7.9 billion decision about a booster before we know whether we need one or not?
Thank you, Senator. I think the first thing to recognize, and this has been miscommunicated, so I think it's very important in the media, is that if you have received 2 doses of your Pfizer or Moderna vaccine, you are right now protected.
Right.
What we are looking at is whether we will need boosters over time. And I think that this is really, given how hard we were hit by this pandemic, I think it's really important to understand where we will be with that. Data suggest from SARS, not SARS-CoV-2, but from SARS, a similar coronavirus, that people have waning immunity over time. And if you looked at what happened in the SARS outbreak several years ago, you saw that people were eligible for reinfection. So there is biologic plausibility that there would be waning immunity after you were infected, and we just don't know when that will be. One of the concerns has been that if we first vaccinated our very most vulnerable, our people in nursing homes, that they may not have had as robust a response, and that they might be the first who, they would be a first who need a booster anyway because they were vaccinated first. But in fact, that they may not have had a robust response.
If we spend $7.9 billion, which I guess we did decide to do on May the 2nd, do we think those vaccines last for some time?
I am not under the impression those are being made right now. I think part of the issue is, what do they need to look like? Are we going to boost with the exact same mRNA structure as we do now, or might we want to boost with a variant structure? And I think those are all conversations that are happening.
Well, I think that's a pretty big spending decision to make based on the information we have, but we can talk about that more later. If we do go forward with booster vaccines, are you all working to see if in an adult immunization program we'd try to combine more things with that booster, a flu shot, a whatever other shot an adult might need at this point?
I think it's pretty clear that we've had an immunization program for adults that wasn't prepared for what we needed in this in this structure. And yes, I think it would be advantageous. Currently, we don't have data as to whether you can co-administer vaccines. Those data we're looking for, and in fact, the ACIP just opined on this last week because we're so behind on childhood immunizations, 11 million behind on childhood immunizations. So those are all the data that we're looking for, because I think it would be really great to be able to leverage what we're doing for COVID for influenza as well, or vice versa.
Exactly, and I hope you'll keep us posted on that as that happens. On data, that was actually where I was going next. You know, the data, we obviously had a data shortage, of some confusion about what data to input, which was not as helpful as it might have been. Now, the committee, in what was then a fairly controversial decision even among our colleagues, we decided before COVID to invest $50 million in base funding over the last 2 years for data. When COVID occurred, you know, and the numbers we were suddenly looking at and dealing with, we did another $500 million. Dr. Suka, tell me where you think we are on better data preparation in the future, or being better ready in the future to have data and the tracking that comes with data. Where are we, and where would you think that heads CDC in the next fiscal year, for instance?
This is essential. The 50 million base appropriations were vital, but you saw how behind we were. This is critical. We are so far behind, even with the increased resources. This is a long-term need. We're better, but we're not where we need to be. We've made huge progress this past year with electronic lab reporting of enormous numbers in terms of how many people were being tested and getting us daily data. But the data were not necessarily complete, and as you heard, the race ethnicity data often missing. We have a need to move to the cloud of many of our systems. We have a need to become, have a workforce that can handle the data at the local level, at the state level, that can use these sophisticated tools and not just react, but predict. So we still have a long way to go, but COVID, we've made a lot of progress on. We need to make that progress across the spectrum of the public health issues.
Well, data and tracking and other things, I think, are an important part of the future of health, and we want to be helpful. And I would hope that the 550 million collectively in the last couple of years has made a substantial difference in where we're headed. Thank you, Chair.
Senator Moran. Thank you. Senator, I have one additional question for you. The CDC faced unexpected difficulties, as we all remember, during those opening phases of the pandemic, especially around testing. And delays in establishing a large-scale testing likely allowed the virus to spread undetected, as we know. One of the several factors that really hampered our efforts to contain that outbreak. Dr. Walensky, I just wanted to ask you today, what lessons has CDC learned from the experience in those first few weeks?
There's been a lot of research going into what we could have done better during that period of time. My responsibility is to own that and to make sure that we are better. Among the challenges were quality assurance, quality control programs that were not in place the way they should have been. And in fact, among the things that we're doing is to ensure that all labs, research and diagnostic labs, are fully accredited. So we are learning those lessons. Those were hard lessons to learn. I do also think that we need to recognize that among CDC's responsibilities is that when we have a new infectious pathogen, we are responsible for creating the diagnostics for that pathogen. Once we have done so, we need interagency collaboration with ASPR, with FDA, with the private sector to ensure that we can bring it to scale. We're now at this morning we did 1 million tests a day. Yesterday we're testing 1 to 2 million a day. That scale up has to be interagency. And so yes, we have a lot of lessons that we can learn from what occurred, and we are learning them and taking resources that have been provided to us so that we can not just take a line item and improve X lab, but we can improve all of the labs and through this accreditation process, for example, but then also to be able to scale at a national level.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. That will end our hearing today, but I do want to thank